Welcome, everyone, to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. I'm Dan Labbe. I'm joined by Mary Kay Cabot and Ashley Bastock. Now, in the second half of this podcast, we're going to do a little OTA preview. That was Ashley, Scott Patsko, and me. But first, we're just going to start the podcast off. We all just watched the HBO Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, the interview, two of Deshaun Watson's accusers speaking to Soledad O'Brien. We both just watched that. We're recording this late on a Tuesday night. It was Kyla Hayes and Ashley Solis who did the interviews with Soledad O'Brien. So, Mary Kay and Ashley, I will just start here. It didn't feel like there was new information necessarily here, but this was kind of the first time where we've seen two of the accusers sit down and do an interview like this. So, I guess did you learn anything new? Did your perspective change, Mary Kay? I mean, what was your impression of sort of this 25 minutes?
Well, the accusers, they seemed very credible. I mean, and we know that, that Rusty Hardin has said that they're lying. We know that Deshaun Watson has steadfastly maintained his innocence. So I was curious to see, what they seemed like, and did they seem credible? And they actually did seem credible to me. I mean, not actually, but I mean, they did seem credible to me. They seemed very sincere. They got very emotional at times. Both of them did. And so it was difficult to watch, but Deshaun's camp, they knew that this was going to be a hard thing to watch, and that this, in the court of public opinion, when you have a woman describing an encounter like that, that's going to be a hard one for Deshaun to win that battle. So I guess that's the first thing that came to my mind, is that, that they did seem very, very genuine in what they were saying. But again, we haven't, Deshaun Watson seemed genuine in what he was saying when we interviewed him at the press conference. So right now, it really is a matter of he said, she said, and it's a difficult thing to get through.
Yeah, I think watching it, for us as people who have been following this obviously extensively, I don't know that this was anything new that we hadn't heard before. But I do think what's interesting with a program like this, especially Real Sports, like, I think this is going to hit a wider audience that maybe hasn't been following this, like, to the same extent that we as reporters have, or people in Cleveland. And like Mary Kay was saying, like, these interviews aren't an easy watch. And I think if you maybe aren't as familiar with the case, that is going to hit you. But for me, overall, it was just, as somebody who has been, like I said, kind of following this, and we've been immersed in it and immersed in Deshaun Watson being here. I'm not sure what the reaction is going to be like for people who have maybe known this information already, but for people who are hearing it the first time, I think it's going to be a jarring watch more than anything. And to hear people tell their own story like that on video, I think is always going to have that effect. And that's what the medium does when you're telling a story that way.
I think that's a good point. The idea of, like, we've been so immersed in this, and I know a lot of Browns fans have been very immersed in this, and NFL fans, at least in Houston and here, have been so, like, they all know the details. But there is a large segment of the population that probably doesn't. They know something was amiss. They know that maybe there's the 22 lawsuits, but they probably haven't been following as closely as we do on a daily basis, right? Because it's our job. Or for Browns fans, this is the quarterback that the Browns traded for. So Mary Kay, I suppose that's kind of the effect this could have, is this is going to show more people kind of what these accusations are, hearing from two of the accusers.
Yeah, I think that most people probably haven't really read all of the interviews, haven't really read all of the lawsuits, haven't seen some of the interviews, because Ashley Solis was actually, I think both of them have been interviewed on TV before, but not national television. So I do think that a lot more people probably now are forming their own opinions about what actually happened. And the important thing to note is that Deshaun Watson declined to be interviewed for this. So this wasn't a situation where, you could see the he said, she said part of this. All you really got to see here was the she said, and then his lawyer, one of his lawyers, Leah Graham, came on at the end and spoke on behalf of Deshaun, but he declined HBO's request to be interviewed for this because he's in the midst of the NFL investigation and didn't want to do anything to, to jeopardize that. So he didn't really have a chance to defend himself against what they're saying. But I mean, right now it really is a case of just their word against his.